gonna do the intro video. Got to push live real quick.
All right, welcome. It is July 25th. It's 10:30 a.m. and welcome to another episode of Ask the Expert. And I'm your host, David Williams, and we have our co-host here, Andy Arter. And we are coming at you live in the Insurance Syndicate group, where we come at you week after week with action-packed value, nothing to sell, but just trying to deliver you value. And I'm incredibly excited about the guest that we have here today. And he's doing some really incredible things out in the insurance space. He's got an incredible coaching company. And I'm going to let Andy really just elaborate on it because he's just crushing it out there. We got Mr. Michael Weever.
Absolutely, Michael. Happy to tee you up today, man. Thank you so much for being with us. So, Michael, you're on fire, man. Michael is an author, speaker, and host of the top-rated insurance podcast, The Insurance Buzz. Also founder of the Weever Sales Academy, which is a sales training organization for insurance professionals responsible for over $200 million in sales. Michael has over 2 decades of experience owning and operating sales organizations and has coached over 10,000 professionals globally. When Michael's not working, I love this personal side because I watch you on social media all the time. And if you guys aren't following Michael, you got to go find him today. When he's not working, him and his wife, Courtney, are avid travelers, adventurers. They like to spend as much time outside as possible. I always see Michael pulling backflips on his wakeboard. And when they aren't living on the edge, you can find them in their Midwest lake home with their 2 dogs, Rocky and Lola, and a one-eyed cat, Phoenix, spending time with family and friends. So make sure you guys go out and check out the Insurance Buzz podcast. Find Michael on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on this post today, we've got all of his social handles below. But Michael, so great to have you. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Thank you both very much, man. I'm looking forward to this.
Likewise.
No, absolutely. And we got a topic today, folks, that is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And I think it's near and dear to everybody else's because it's where we put a lot of our attention inside of our businesses, inside of our insurance agencies, and that is sales. And we're going to be going through. So feel free. Do not be shy. Jump into the chat. Whatever you got for a question, we are taking questions live. That's what Ask the Experts are all about. And we also have some curated questions from some of our audience members and other insurance agents that are out there all around sales in the insurance space. So without further ado, I'll let Andy here kick off the first question he's got for us.
Absolutely. So this one's going to be a real high level question, but I think it's a great place to start. And this has to do more with sales techniques. And everybody's got, their silver bullets, their secret formula. And what I'd love to find out from you today is you could just share some of the most effective sales techniques that you've seen contribute to your own success and your client success, specifically within the insurance industry.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really, really great question. So thank you, Andy. Two things are coming to my mind, but before I get into those specific techniques, I want to discuss the importance of development, growth, and investing in yourself. Because in my opinion, when it comes to sales and when it comes to advancing your career, becoming an elite producer, the number one thing that you can do is not a technique. It's not a secret sauce. It's not a magic bullet. It is increasing your skill development and increasing yourself, your growth, so that you become the absolute best that you can be. And I don't want to overstate that or forget about it, because in my opinion, I'm in the position I am today because of the amount of work I have put into myself, the amount of money that I've invested into myself. I mean, when I was poor, getting started in the insurance industry, I read a book. I listened to a book in my 2008 Chevy Malibu, man, 4-cylinder, could barely freaking get to work some days. Put the CD in though and listen to Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Selling, every single day for 18 months in a row on the way to work and the way home from work. I mean, it was so bad that the very first date I had with my wife now, Courtney, she jumps in the car. She's like, what are we listening to? I'm like, oh, that's my boy BT, man. Like, we're getting better today. All right. So, but I think that that's really, really important to emphasize, because that's the one thing that no one can ever take away from you is what you learn, your knowledge, your development, your skills. Yep. All right. So,
and I'll piggyback on that real quick too, because I'll tell you, that was probably one of the most successful. When I built our first insurance agency, we exited, got back into the game again. One of the biggest things I had as a foundation, I came from a place that I had, a lot of great leadership training. I was, at Circuit City before they shut down and started my entrepreneurial journey, but I got a lot of sales training out of that too. So, when I first come in, I think there's too many times people will start a business and maybe they didn't come from that place of experience, right? But then all of a sudden I started my business, and what am I now? I am the CEO. And then I'm too good to maybe be in that sales role, that customer service role, and everything else. And I think it's quite the opposite. And that's the root cause of a lot of failure for a lot of businesses and agencies, is maybe if you lack that experience, if you lack it, how do you lead it? I'll say it again. If you lack it, how do you lead it? So my take on it is, like, that's where I really started my business. I was my own best salesperson. And the way that served me is I was able to develop a framework and an understanding of how high is high, how low is low, where can production really get to on an individual level? How do I hold them accountable? And then how do I train and support them to objection block, to frame the conversations the right way, to build rapport and understand all those nuances? And I feel like you really can't understand it, you can't teach it, and you can't lead it unless you've actually gotten to a place of expertise yourself. And then that allows you to be an effective leader, coach in your own business, in your own agency. And that's one of the most powerful weapons you have. Until Michael's point, like, nobody can ever take that away from you. So your business goes to zero tomorrow, you're back into the game because nobody can take that one thing away from you.
And Dave, you're hitting the nail on the head, brother. Like, leading by example. When you have the ability to lead by example and know where your team, your producers are struggling, or even where you're struggling. And I'm a firm believer that sales is one of those things that you have to stay in the game. Yep. Right? You have to continue to master your craft. That's why even where I'm at in the stage today as a sales coach and trainer, I'm still on the phone daily with agents, having sales conversations with them. I'm still jumping into role plays on Tuesdays in our community group, going through auto conversations, going through life conversations, because you always have to be mastering that skill, or else it's just like anything else in life. If you quit doing it, if you quit practicing, if you actually quit having those conversations, look, you're going to forget about pieces of it. You're not going to be as sharp as you once were. And so I love what you're saying, Dave. And the two techniques, because I don't want to skip through this question with just skill development, the importance of investing, leading by example. The very first one that comes to my mind that helped me tremendously in my career was when I learned how to assume the conversation and assume the sell. So when you get somebody on the phone, you're making those dials, you get that conversation started. I always like to think of starting with the end in mind. And when you start with the end in mind, the end is, I want to close this customer. I want to help this customer out today. All right. Because that's how I get paid. And that's how I actually help them out. Well, when you start a conversation, but you do your elevator pitch and then you're like, hey, so you want to quote today? That is what not to do. Like, you're always going to just have your elevator pitch, who you are, what you're calling about, your big, bold statement. Like, why should someone have a conversation with you? And then you're going to assume that they want to have a conversation. You're not going to ask them if they want to be a part of it. You're going to assume that they want to be a part of it by simply assuming, like, going for that immediate yes. So for example, I would say, hey, so is your address still 123 Main Street? And when they say yes, well, great. Hey, what kind of cars did you have? And then I'd go into that rapport building. And it's the same thing on the close. I actually have a really great success story of a producer I helped. Like, he was really struggling. He was 90 days in. He had went through the trainings. He was making the dials, but there was a disconnect. And so I role played with him and I was like, okay, role play the whole conversation. Conversation was great, asking questions. He assumed the conversation, but when it came to money, the ability to ask for money, he got weird. All right. At the very end of the conversation, he'd be like, okay, so for everything we talked about today, it's $200 a month. And he would just freeze up. He'd just go silent. Like, oh shit, what is the thing that we do next? And so just the minor tweak of, hey, so right when you ask for payment, or right when you deliver the price, hey, for everything we talked about today, it's $200 a month. You want to put that on your Visa, MasterCard, or Amex? He implemented that and instantly saw an increase in his production by triple the amount. So he went from producing 20 policies a month to 60 policies a month within a 45-day time frame, all from that one little tweak in the conversation.
No, I love that. Love that. Now I'll add in there too, some of the techniques that I love. I love sales so much because it's an art. And I think not enough people look at it like an art, because if you look at sales, really at the end of the day, every action has a reaction. It's the same thing when, we watch the news, whether you're watching Fox, whether you're watching CNN, whatever you're watching, it's creating a reaction out of people. But I can guarantee you, everything that they're delivering you has a lot of intentionality behind it. And if you start really looking at your sales process and putting intentionality behind it and framing it, understanding that every action has a reaction, that you can really start to really self-analyze yourself. Why do the greatest athletes on the planet go in and critique themselves during the game and after the game, right? Because they want to adjust. Where can I get better? Where can I do things differently? And it's the same thing with your sales process where, and I tell people, I even did it myself when I first started my insurance business. Listen back to the calls. What could I have done or adjusted differently here? What could I have done and adjusted differently there? When I'm noticing certain objections that are coming to me constantly, how do I frame it where I objection block in the beginning of the conversation that eliminates those objections of even coming in the beginning? So now I get to the point where it's so masterful, you almost feel like you're predicting what's going to happen. And when you practice this and you get really, really good at it, you can get to a point with like a 90% degree of predictability that if I say this, and this on the call, I know that there's a high probability and an outcome of them responding with this, or this. And then what that's doing is it's creating this frame and this pathway throughout the entire sales call that allows you to lead them exactly to the destination that you're looking to get them to, ultimately to being a buyer, to being a customer inside of your agency. But I think more times than not, we see employees that are out there, they're on the phone, and then they're just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, putting the reps around bad habits, expecting a different result. But if you want to get a different result, you got to do things differently.
And something that I want to throw in there from my experience, I worked for Grant Cardone for about 3.5 years, and I would consider his sales team to be very much like an athletic force, like a football team, the way that it was operated, that when you walked on that sales floor, you were walking onto the game field. When you think about athletics and professional athletes, a lot of them will use highlight reels to analyze not just their play, but their competitors as well as their teammates. And one of the really interesting things that happen culturally that I think any sales organization can really benefit from is having a shared Dropbox or Google Drive where you drop in your best sales calls, and as a team you all have access to go listen to each other. Because I would go into that drive and I'd listen to the guy that was making the most money on the floor and take notes and listen to him, or we'd use it as a sales meeting, or the new guy would get a cultural lift because he just had a great call and did something crazy in the call, right? And flipped a customer from never call me again to a one call close. And now we'd put that on display and let the entire team listen. So I also think like taking those highlight reels and making that a regular part of your culture can make, have a major impact.
Absolutely,
as well.
100%. And then taking that and taking every customer, because it's like I hear so many times too, and then we'll move on to the next question, but I think this is just really important. So many times, there's another one that just doesn't get it, right? Because we're all selling on price. We're selling on price. But what if you created a positive predisposition in the beginning of the call? Like, hey, I noticed you got some good limits when it comes to this. You know what that tells me about you is it tells me that the most important thing when it comes to your insurance is protecting your financial future and protecting my family. Am I correct in that assessment? Yes. Okay, great. That's why I love working with people just like you. It's not like other people are bad people out there, but you'd be surprised how many people don't get it. And that's why I love working with people like you. So now when you get to the end of the call and you don't beat them on price and you're breaking down the right coverage because they're likely underinsured, well, it's a lot more difficult now because you just casted them into the frame of somebody that's like similar to me that cares about their family and their financial future above all.
Yeah, man. I agree with that. Everything you both just said is spot on. And the one thing, like number one, if you're selling on price, specifically in any sales industry, but specifically insurance, you're doing it wrong. All right. You're gonna line yourself up for a really, really hard career because most times you're going to be more expensive. And so I have a golden rule that's always quote more coverage, always quote more policies. But the one thing I want to mention with techniques is psychology of selling. The best salespeople in the world are the best at asking questions. And so making sure that you're asking questions, being an active listener, making sure that you are disturbing what I call complacency. So figuring out, having that discovery conversation around, hey, what's important to them besides price? And then in the presentation, that's what you're hitting on with the confirmation questions throughout. So yeah, man, I think we could probably jam out on that one all day long.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'm going to turn the boat a little deeper into this. And Michael, I had the great pleasure of sitting in on a couple of webinars you did around life insurance and multi-lining and some of these, cross-selling opportunities. So this one I've been dying to ask you for a long time, which is how can insurance producers, owners, management focus on cross-selling more, getting to from home to auto, from auto to life, maybe even into commercial or referrals. But what are some of the best pivoting strategies and some of the best overall techniques for going in and multi-lining business that you've seen over the years?
So the best strategy, I actually just hit on this, is asking questions. How are you supposed to offer someone something without getting to understand what their situation looks like? So the better you get at having a discovery conversation with someone, the better you get at asking questions, understanding, like my favorite, like family, occupation, recreation. If you can get really good at building rapport, finding commonalities, and discovering what their family situation's like. If they got kids, boom, automatic, like, okay, life insurance opportunity. If they own their own business, great. Okay, we got a commercial opportunity with probably life insurance, with probably health insurance, all kinds of benefit opportunities. What do they like to do for fun? All right, that's just an easy way to build commonalities because people do business with people they know, like, and they trust. All right. So I would first start there. Like, do not overlook the most important part of the conversation. And that is the rapport building and the discovery conversation where you're figuring out what problems you're going to solve.
Yeah. And I think too, like, piggybacking on that too, I love great points, Michael. I think really finding out, hey, why are they on the call today? How do I get in alignment with them? So they know that their interest is my best interest and I can get all the answers and all the data that I need, but also by framing the question the right way. So if you're framing it in a way where they feel you're just trying to sell them one more thing in the call, they're going to completely shut down on you. And it's going to be inherently difficult to cross-sell or go deeper in the household. But if you actually frame it in a way that's in alignment with their expectations and what they're looking for out of the call, because let's face it, what are they looking for? They're looking to save money. They're looking to get dollar for dollar the best value on their insurance. while they're getting better coverage and the right coverage for their insurance. So those are the things that are most important to the average customer on the call. So what we like to do is framing it in a way where, hey, now to the discount questions. The more yeses you can give me, the more potential discounts I can give you. So this is incredibly important. And it maybe start with a couple ones that are non-cross-selling. Hey, do you have an accident safety course? Hey, do you have this, right? And then you go into, well, the more yeses you give me on this question, it's incredibly important. The more discounts I can potentially stack for you. Do you have any rental properties? Do you have any toys, boats, jet skis, anything do you have? Do you currently have an umbrella? Do you currently have life insurance for your family that's protecting the thing that matters most? So you're going down the gamut. Do you have a business or any commercial insurance? And statistics show that people have, I think it's like 1 in 3 people insure 2 to 3 things outside of their home and auto. So there's a lot of meat that's left on the table in the average sales transaction. If you simply frame that way every single time, every single call, the law of large numbers, just by asking that every single time, is you're going to get the right answer. And then all of a sudden your cross-sell and your bundling is going to go through the roof. And now it takes less to do more because now you're closing sales transactions at a much higher clip, much deeper in the household, and those people are going to retain at a much, much higher level.
Spot on, Dave. You're spot on. And so I always like to encourage processes. Okay. So number one, you're asking the right questions. Dave just shared a ton of really great questions to ask on every single conversation. 2, you have to think of so I'm going to share just an easy process. And I'm a value-based sales professional. I'm a value-based sales coach. I'm not a big fan of what's called transactional selling. I believe that you can create a transformational experience in the same time frame that you would just go through a transactional process with somebody. So if you want to drive life insurance, a really easy value-based approach to this is anytime you're quoting somebody that has an auto home, you're automatically going to ask them about their mortgage payoff protector plan. So boom, you explain the auto policy, you go into the home. Hey, before I get into your homeowner's insurance policy, let me ask you real fast. You probably have a mortgage on that, right? Great. Well, hey, roughly how much is that mortgage? Boom. So you have to find this out. Then it's, hey, well, tell me, I should have asked you earlier in the conversation, what does your mortgage payoff protector plan look like? Meaning that in the event something happened to you, you passed away today, your spouse would receive a check large enough to pay off the mortgage so that your family didn't have to worry about selling the house, possibly filing bankruptcy, moving school districts. What does that look like? You just opened up a really great conversation for life insurance at a benefit amount that's going to be a really good policy from a premium standpoint, even if it is just term life insurance. The same thing with an auto renter. So you're quoting an auto renter, same strategy, except for you use the words debt payoff protector plan. Hey, what does your debt payoff protector plan look like? Meaning you pass away, your family receives a check large enough to pay off all of your debt, plus continue to make the rent payment for an extended amount of time so they're not evicted or struggling financially to make those rent payments.
Oh, I love that. Love that.
Those are 2 simple processes that it's easy for the consumer to understand. Mortgage payoff protector. Oh shit, that would be a problem. Or debt payoff protector. Wow. that would be a problem if I didn't have any income.
And just like you said right there, emphasize that with the energy. Oh my gosh, you don't have the mortgage payoff protector? Wow, we need to do something like that. And that's the beauty about working with somebody like myself. Because how many people have quoted you? How many people have been your insurance agent that never had this conversation? So if it hasn't happened in the past 30 years, what makes you think the probability of it happening? I know you said you want to get another quote or get another 5 quotes. What do you think the probability of that happening in the next call? I think what we've determined here is I'm your guy when it comes to insurance because you're what matters most in my eyes. So it's all in the framing. It's all in emphasizing it. It's all in just giving it with the right jargon that gets alignment with your prospect on the call.
Dave's assuming in the whole conversation, I'm your guy, baby. There ain't nobody else out there better than me.
Where are you going to find me? It's been 30 years and you haven't found me, and here I am. What do you think the statistical probability of that happening in 5 more phone calls? Let's just do the deal now, and I'll tell you what. If you find somebody that can do better than I can, they can beat my price, they can give you better coverage, and they're more committed to earning your business, give me a call, and I'll be the first one to term out this policy for you and gladly hand you over there. I'm confident in saying that because I know it's not going to happen.
Hey, first sales technique I shared, assumption, baby. Let's do this.
As you can see, I'm fired. It's a topic near and dear to my heart. You can see I'm fired up about it.
So we're going to start a mastermind at 9 a.m. every day. I'm just going to hang out and pull off your guys' energy. I love this. All right. So this is a little bit different question, less about technique, more about management. And the question revolves around KPIs. And I'm curious, Michael, for you, what are the key performance indicators, the KPIs that you would recommend tracking and measuring the success of your sales team, your sales management, and how can you really leverage that KPI data with your team and internally to improve your processes, improve your sales, so on and so forth?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Andy. I want to go back to the last question just real fast and don't overlook this. Meet with your customers, either in person or virtually. That's the easiest way to build relationships and cross-sell into financial services opportunities. All right. So meet with your customers. It's easier than ever with virtual technology. KPIs, baby. All right. How are we going to coach our people? How are we going to make them better? I used to do a thing, and I do that. I still do this with all of my sales professionals on my team, but in the agency specifically, when somebody starts out with you, I always track calls, contacts, quotes, and sales. Okay. So that gives me a lot of information on, okay, if they're making calls, they're getting a hold of people, but they're not converting it into a quote or what I call a conversation. Okay, that's an easy coaching point. Or maybe they're making the calls, getting the contacts, converting into quotes, but they're not making any sales. So that's really easy data that I had someone fill out every single day and give to me that would allow me to be a better coach the next day in the team meeting. When it comes down to the KPI that I believe matters the most, and this is something that I didn't do in the beginning of my career that I would go back and change. So in the beginning of my career, I tracked calls and I just pushed the absolute heck out of calls. Everybody in my agency was required to make 150 calls a day every single day. The problem with that is they were so focused on the calls that they weren't worried about converting those calls to quotes. And they were getting burnt out. And so the one KPI that I believe is the most important is the actual conversation itself. So the actual quote itself. So, hey, how many quotes? So my big thing is 3, because statistically speaking, not only in my agency, but over thousands of agents I've helped, if their team can have a quote, and I define a quote as an elevator pitch into rapport building, into discovery with a presentation asking for the sell a minimum of 3 times. If they have that 3 times a day, every single day, they're going to close 1 household a day. All right. And if they close 1 household a day at 3 products, that's going to be 60 apps a month. Everybody's going to be pretty happy with that. So conversations are what truly matters, in my opinion, in the sales business. So you could track conversations and talk time. Those are the 2 KPIs that I believe matter, that actually move the dial 100%. To production and revenue.
No, absolutely. And then for some of you new folks that are on the program, maybe you're a brand new insurance agent, brand new business owner, KPI, key performance indicator. And I want to add something to that too, because I'm 100% in agreement everything that Michael is saying. And I want to share with a framework that helped really create an infrastructure, a culture in management around those KPIs that we've always done in all of our organizations. So one of the things that I found really, really works is modeling after excellence. And what do I mean by that? When I first started my agency, one of the best ways I trained my folks was through osmosis. I was the guy that was the maniac on the phones that was pulling people out of the line at the DMV, putting in 14-hour days, had somebody on the left of me, had somebody on the right. Because I set the bar so high, I call it the Roger Bannister effect. Anybody that doesn't know Roger Bannister, he's the one that broke the 4-minute mile. Everybody thought it was impossible, until the impossible was possible and he did it. But guess what happened immediately after that, when it hadn't been done in decades? Everybody started breaking 4-minute miles. And it's the same psychological effect, because people will do as you do before they do as you say. Seeing is believing. You could hear something, but if you see it, it hits different, right? So that was one of the best ways we did. So I took that as a learning lesson, and we set up a framework where we took our best people and said, hey, what are the KPIs, our best people? What does excellence look like? Okay. Maybe it looks like 4 hours talk time in a day. Maybe it looks like a couple hundred dials in a day. Maybe it looks like 8 conversations in a day. And then it reaches that. But what gets in the way of sales reps actually modeling excellence? Well, the answer to that I found over years and years of managing salespeople is they do. They get into their own way. It's because there's overanalysis paralysis, focusing on what's most important. I'm doing paperwork, procrastination. These are all habits of the type A personalities that salespeople are. I am one of them, so I know it. You got to give them a framework that keeps them in their lane, so they keep the main thing the main thing. So one of the ways that we did that is we actually break up every day like a football game. We take those KPIs and we have our sales director. He's like the coach on the field. Okay, we're a quarter of the day in and we know we got to hit 4 hours talk time by the end of the day. There's 4 quarters. So we're 2 hours in. You should have an hour talk time. You should have 50 dials in. you should be on the trajectory to get 2 deals today. And we know in order to get 2 deals, this is how many quotes that you have. And if they don't have that, now it's digging into what's getting in the way of you getting there. Well, I had this and that. Well, I'm going to remove all those things off your plate so you can just focus on the main thing. And now maybe they are exhibiting those behaviors from a KPI perspective. To Michael's point, dialing into the call now and, okay, what behaviors are off that's preventing the result from being there? Because all the KPI driven behaviors from a mechanic standpoint, the talk time is there, the quotes are there, the calls are there, but they're not getting the result. So now it's taking it a layer deeper. And then what we do is our new software we created, Jarvie, which helps automate the role play process. Basically what we do is we have set role plays that are built into the system. And then when we highlight, hey, you know what, they're struggling with the greeting and they need to work on that. Well, we find people don't learn through putting the reps in on the fly. You got to take them off the floor. And one of the things that we found is like, nobody likes the role play. Agency owners, first off, they're wearing multiple hats. Second of all, it's like not an enjoyable thing to do. It's uncomfortable for the employee. It's uncomfortable with them. So we created Jarvie that allows you to put your perfect pitch in your platform. So when we highlight that as an opportunity, we're like, hey, you know what? This is an opportunity for you. Go put the reps in like they're going to the batting cages. And then they got to put in 12 role plays before they can hit the phone again. And it's like that instantaneous, we're seeing a turnaround into the result. But by setting up the football game like that, like treating the game like a football game, having the coach, the floor leader going around and policing all those behaviors and activity. And then just like again, in professional sports, you put them in the cages when they're having a problem with the fundamentals of their swing. And we're finding it gets them right back on track. And what this does is if they start to develop a bad behavior, because you could have one of your best reps that all of a sudden go down to the path of start doing something different, and they develop a bad behavior that gets them into a slump. This helps mitigate that and prevent that and brings consistency among your team.
Amen, brother. You got to practice to get better, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Practice. The old saying, practice makes perfect. I believe that's wrong. I think it's perfect practice makes perfect.
You got to stay. It's kind of how we started the conversation. That's how you stay sharp. And while I know it's not easy to stay disciplined to those role plays, to those practice, you hit on it, Dave. Like sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's just not fun. Even if you're willing to hold your team accountable for 15 minutes a day, that's all it takes is just a few role plays to just stay sharp, make sure everybody's on the same page, make sure everybody's still having that conversation, not developing bad habits. It's one of the best things that you can do in your business is just like a batter gets into the batter's box before they step up to the plate. You got to practice before you get on the phone with a customer.
Absolutely. And it looks like one of our next questions we had come in here is dealing with a rejection. So rejection is obviously one of the biggest parts of sales. I think that's one of the biggest things that can defeat a lot of sales reps that are out there. So Michael, what is, how do you coach insurance agents, LSPs, your own team on how to handle rejection and also get them to understand it's part of the process so they stay motivated?
Yeah, that's another really great question, man. You guys got a lot of great questions coming in from the audience. So Go for No is a good book and it's a good philosophy to have in sales. Understanding, and that's something that I say in the very beginning within and I reiterate it multiple times when somebody starts with me over their first 90 days is, hey, you're learning something new. And in sales, you're going to get told no way more than you ever get told yes, specifically when you're starting out. So I kind of lay that groundwork for failure, that uncomfortable feeling of getting told no from the very beginning. But I like to go a step further because I believe that what you're doing personally is a direct reflection on how you're going to perform professionally. What I mean by this is mindset is everything in sales, just like mindset is everything in life. And so I'm a huge proponent when it comes to just being great at sales, when it comes to getting through the roller coaster ride of sales, I'm a huge proponent of number one, making sure you're taking care of yourself. So what I mean by that is what are you doing to increase your physical self, your emotional self, your mental self? Like, what are you doing every single day to make sure you're the best freaking version of yourself? So no matter what happens throughout the day, you're like a freaking Spartan, baby. You're like, I don't care, man. Like, let's roll. So I think that is the one thing that probably doesn't get talked about enough that I talk about a lot is what are you doing every single day to make sure you're taking care of your physical self? So for example, if you like pushing weights, Go push some weights. If you like yoga, do some yoga. If you just like going on a walk, go on a walk. What are you doing to maybe the mental self or emotional? Like I'm a big proponent. Like I sit in my sauna and I meditate and I pray every single day. Like that's just a routine that I have. I read daily. So I'm always increasing that mental, physical, emotional aspect of my personal life. And I'm doing something fun throughout the day. So like my perfect day, I'm starting the day out in the summer on a wakeboard. So I'm working out, I'm reading, I'm sauna, I'm on a wakeboard. By 7:30 in the morning, I'm like, the best thing about my day's already happened, baby. Like no matter what happens today, I am good. And so
100%. Speaking my language.
it's so important though, because sales is so dang hard every single day that if you can just make yourself feel almost bulletproof,
Yep.
man, that helps the days go by a lot better.
No, and I mean, to your point there too, it's like, I think all those things are incredibly important. They're not talked about enough. That's why I call it real American personal excellence. If you're going after like all core areas of life, trying to be, just show up to keep it simple. Every area of life that matters most to you, just try to show up and get 1% better in that area every single day. 1% better in your relationships at home, 1% better in your faith, 1% better when it comes to your finances, 1% better in your fitness, and 1% better when it comes to your mental toughness, because all those things will play into every other aspect of life. And if you have 3 of those pillars that are being neglected, it's going to bleed into everything. It's going to bleed into all your relationships. It's going to bleed into your sales ability, because let's face it, sales can be tough. You got to have high energy. You got to be on your game. You got to make sure that, you have a strong mental fortitude when it comes to being a great salesperson. You could have good salespeople or mediocre salespeople, but if you want to be great, you got to have that strong mental fortitude. And when you're coming in and you got momentum in other areas of life, like I'll say that if you got momentum in other important other areas of life, the confidence just kind of rolls off your shoulders. It like you project it, you feel it, you get up and look good in the mirror. When you look good in the mirror, that changes the language that you then convey to those around you, including the prospects that you have. So I'm a firm believer in every one of those aspects all tied together.
So I actually believe that this is the secret sauce and the magic bullet everybody is looking for, because by doing this on a daily basis, this builds the one muscle that every successful person I know has, and that's discipline. It is the discipline muscle. It's the discipline to show up. It's the discipline to make the call when you don't want to make the call. It's the discipline to do the right conversation every single time. It's the discipline to just do what you're supposed to do every single day. And discipline is a muscle you can build. So even if you might be somebody that has told yourself, I'm undisciplined, I'm whatever you're telling yourself, you can change that, but you have to make the intentional effort to change that. And it starts with how you're treating yourself personally.
No, and I think, one last thing out there when it comes to rejection there, I think it's getting excited about the rejection and getting better in the process and turning that rejection into success. and it's possible in every single person. They just got to dig deep and find that why and that purpose that's most important to them. And I'll tell you why it's possible, because everybody can pick up a video game and they can fail at a level in a video game 100 times over again and keep doing it and keep taking rejection over and over and over again until they finally beat the level. But when it comes to life, all of a sudden we give up. But why? When we were a kid, when we're first born, what do kids do? They don't know anything other. They don't know failure. They keep getting up, keep getting up, keep getting up until they walk. So it's like embracing that inner child, embracing, hey, when you're in front of a video game, to remember, you just got to make it matter more than a video game. And that's one of the things that we like to do with our team that I wanted to hit on, is do vision boards with them, because you can measure the KPI, right? But does the KPI matter to them? And is there an emotional connection to the KPI and what matters most in their life? And if you can make that connection, you can get people to run through walls for you and create alignment with their assignment, right? So one of the ways we do that is, okay, where do you want to be personally in life? Where do you want to be professionally in life? Well, personally, I'm stuck into this apartment. It's not safe. I want to get a bigger place for my family. I want to get a new car because my car keeps breaking down. And then, Dave, I'd like to be in your seat one day. Well, great. Well, I'm going to help you get there, but I need permission from you on something. Well, what's that? To hold you accountable at a level that's far above and beyond your role, because that's going to be what it takes over the next 3 to 5 years to get you in a place that prepares you to achieve all these goals. Do I have your permission to do that? So now when you're a leader in the organization and you're having conversations with them, now it's a lot different. Instead of, hey, why didn't you make your dials? Hey, what's going on today? I noticed you didn't do it. Well, is that fair to little Jimmy or little Jane at home that's waiting to get into that new home, waiting to get into a safer neighborhood, waiting to get into a more reliable, safer car? Is that fair to them? Is it fair to you that it's maybe going to cost you another year or two longer to be sitting in my seat with a name on the door that's going to change your financial future in life? So that hits a lot different than, hey, why didn't you make your dials every day, right? Because now that matters, and make them hang it on their freaking computer, their vision board, and a picture of their family, and make them look their family in the eye and say, hey, I don't feel like showing up today. It's going to be a lot more tough to look at your kid or your daughter in the eye, your son in the eye, and do that. And we do that to get them to connect to their purpose, because I find if you serve them as a leader, helping them get to their goals is the number one priority, you're never going to have to worry about getting to your own goals. They're always going to happen.
Yeah, man. I got two thoughts that came to my mind. So a mindset shift, and talking about what you just said, is going for no. And when I made this mindset shift, because I used to hate being told no, and I struggled the first 3 to 6 months of my insurance career as a producer quite a bit, like to the point where I was like, I don't know if this is for me. But when I shifted my mindset from no's are not bad, no's are actually good because they eliminate the maybe, they eliminate the follow-up. So I'm going for a yes, I'm going for a no, I'm trying to eliminate the maybe. It was like a game I played with myself. Like I was actually like going into a call, like I dare you to tell me no. Like I dare you to tell me no. I'm ready to overcome it. So that was a mindset shift that I made that really helped. So if anybody's struggling with that, with getting told no and the rejection, I would encourage you to consider, like, how can I change my mindset on how I view no? And then with the vision boards, that is a leadership move that will help you take your business to the next level, because now you're tying your agency goals to your team's personal goals. And when they're bought into their personal goals, that automatically means they're going to accomplish the professional, the business goals. And so that alignment, in my opinion, has to be there. That's what the greats do, Dave. What you just said, the greats, that's what we did. Like we always had a conversation around, we did vision boards every year. And then we'd also sit down in one-on-ones every year and be like, okay, what's your goal over the next 3 months and 12 months? And how can we help you accomplish that? This is what you have to do professionally to make sure that you're on pace and exceeding those goals. And so we always tied professional to personal just to make sure if somebody's only focused on their professional goals as a business owner, your team's not going to buy into that.
Oh, 100%. Like you got to create alignment to the assignment, right?
That's right. That's right.
No, I love it. Love it, man. A lot of good stuff here. I'm loving this episode here. So one of the next ones that we got here is when it comes to adapting to change. Obviously, the insurance industry now more than ever it seems like every other day they're moving the cheese, right? So how do you stay ahead of industry trends, both from when you're coaching agency owners as well as LSPs, so they don't skip a beat? That change comes along, and getting in the place where they're so nimble that they can adapt to that change without skipping a beat. Because I think there's a path there that happens, right? We get hit with the change and then we have a decision. We can do something about it and take the right degree of action, or we can sit in a setback and let it affect us. And, I think the ones that are resilient, that are consistent, they always seem to adapt to change. So what do you see there? And what do you recommend when it comes to adapting to change in the insurance industry?
So change is ever occurring. It's the one thing that you can count on every single day in the insurance industry. There is going to be change. So you need to be nimble and you just need to flow with it, baby. All right. So the one thing I do is I really try to stay up to date with the Insurance Journal, thought leaders in the space, talking to peers. What I found myself when I was in agency, I basically got into my own little hole. All right. I got into my own little hole. I only saw what I could see. And the problem with that is I'm a big believer in putting the horse blinders on and running your own race. But when it comes to industry trends, industry changes, you need to have friends outside of the space, outside of even, I would say, your company, to see what's going on. How are they being successful? So personally, that's why you want to coach. That's why you want somebody in your back pocket. You want a peer of a high level mentor that can also help you think outside the box. Like I was talking to an agent I coached the other day, and it's a tough rate environment right now in his state. he's fallen behind. I'm like, well, hey, have you talked to your carrier about the zip codes that they're strategically targeting that your rates are better? And he's like, not even think of that, man. I've been talking to agents. I've been talking to my sales leaders. Like, no one's mentioned that. And so always thinking outside the box, getting with peers from other companies, all right, and paying attention to those on LinkedIn that are thought leaders in the space, the Insurance Journal. There's a lot of people that put out a lot of really great content. This right here, Ask the Experts, the podcast. In the world we live in today, it is so easy to keep up with changes and to know what others are doing to maximize on those changes, that I believe you just have to set aside the time on a daily basis, 15, 30 minutes, jump on a podcast, communicate with a peer, and you're automatically going to elevate yourself and be better prepared for what's coming in the future down the pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to getting outside of that box too, get outside into a box that makes you uncomfortable. So I think so many people, hey, I'll get outside of the box, but then you're inside another box with other people that are in the same box as you. And then you're all struggling to get out of that same box together. But if you find a place where it's uncomfortable, people are light years ahead of where you'll be, I can guarantee you over time, growth is going to be expeditious in that environment. And then all of a sudden you'll quickly find yourself maybe over the course of a year, 2 years, finding a new box. And then that's going to help your growth. And if you're growing, then your team is growing underneath you too.
Yeah, with that, don't get into a box of a bunch of people complaining. All right.
Yeah,
if you get into a box and people are like, these rates, all these claims, like, you better leave that box immediately and get into a box of high performers, because high performers and people doing things at an elite level, they're not complaining. They're figuring out ways to maximize the opportunity at hand.
Oh, 100%. And I know we're riffing a little bit here too, but I want to talk a minute about complaining, because you got to watch yourself. What is the shadow you're casting as a leader in your agency? Do you ever complain? Because I guarantee you, your team is looking for you to complain once, to use that as the excuse for mediocrity. Like, your team is looking for one complaint. So you got to come in there as a one-face individual, no matter what you got going on in life and what you're feeling. Like, you got to put the armor on and come in there like a freaking warrior and lead the team, because the second you have the excuse, like, they're going to have the excuse. And you got to be very careful with your inner language that you have to people. I know a lot of people think that's hocus pocus, positive self-talk and all, but no, there's actually real science behind it. At the bottom base of the brain, you got your reticulating activating system. And whatever you're giving yourself for that inner language, whether it's negative or positive, you're going to get more of it. It's the same where, hey, who's bought a new car out there and you got that new white Kia, and all of a sudden you see Kias everywhere and white Kias? Well, it's because your brain processes 60,000 thoughts a day, and it only puts the thoughts that are most important to the forefront of your mind, of what you focus your attention on. So if you give your attention to negative, excuse, you're going to get more negative. You're going to live in the land of excuses. But if you're going positive, optimistic, taking action, doing something about it, well, that's what's going to come to the front forward of your mind. And then you're going to be living in a place of just moving forward, breaking down barriers and winning. So I think that's really important. You know, not just not being around the people that are having the negative talk, but making sure that you're not exhibiting it in front of your team or in front of the mirror.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Joe Dispenza is somebody I listen to at least once a week. And he's a mindset genius, just really in how to restructure that mind. And I would say this, look, it's a lot easier said than done. I think you'd agree with that, Dave. And so number one, awareness is important. So if you start to complain, create awareness around that. Number two, if you're going to complain, so we had a rule in my agency. If you're going to complain, call it out. All right. And it's what we call a BMW moment, bitch, moan, and whine. And you have 30 seconds, and then we're getting back around our day, and we're not complaining about this topic anymore. And so if you are going to do it, call it out, be aware of it, but try to minimize that, man. Like, complaining literally doesn't help anything besides maybe your feelings. And then even after you complain, you're still feeling crappy about yourself. So
no, 100%. There's usually one cure. That's winning. Love it. All right. One of the next questions we got here is technology in sales. How has technology impacted your sales process, and what tools and software you find beneficial for, sales and sales management?
Man, I think technology is going to really, it already has taken off. But if you think it's taken off now, I think the next 3 to 5 years is going to be insane in the type of technology that we see in the industry. It's going to disrupt the industry. Right now, I believe just technology in itself, technology needs to enhance the customer experience, not replace the customer experience. And it needs to help you run a more efficient organization. Statistically speaking, all right, I like data. So, because a lot of people in today's times, when I talk about the importance of human connection and having conversations, they're like, Michael, our customers don't want that. Well, actually, 83% of Gen Zers say they want a relationship with their financial advisor. 79% of millennials say they want the same thing. And so people actually do want relationships. Sure. I'm not saying they don't want to control their policies on their phone, but they still want that go-to person. And so I believe that you can utilize technology to enhance that customer experience, build an even deeper relationship with that customer, make it more efficient, easier, simpler to do business with, but don't allow it or don't think that you're going to be able to replace the customer experience, because that's why you are in the business. And if you're not the one doing that, you're going to get replaced. When it comes to the tools I think text messaging, obviously you got to check into your state guidelines and rules, but I think text messaging is fantastic for prospecting. And I also believe, I mentioned this earlier, I believe that a lot of folks are scared of virtual appointments and even hiring remote team members. And I believe that virtual technology allows you to run a more efficient business and the ability to scale at a faster pace if you choose to do it. And so I'm a big proponent of utilizing text messaging and the virtual landscape as a way to scale your business and make it easier for people to do business with you.
No, I love that. Love that. And, real quick in the technology side, we use 3 pieces of technology. I'd say it's game changing, inside of our operations. We obviously have a great CRM that's really robust. We use Ricochet 360 that allows you to dial out. It's got a dialer built into it, customizable campaigns. So you can actually strategically analyze, making sure that your best people are calling your best leads, automated workflow that have the text messaging, the email and everything. Cause I look at it like this. So like you got a great sales rep, they're a great soldier, but what do you got to do with a great soldier? You got to give them great artillery that's around them to help them go out the battle. So if you can arm your soldier with that, now that's freeing up the capacity. They can do more of what they do best and just go out there and execute. And there's a lot of things that people don't even know. Like, because back to the change part, well, the industry's changing a lot when it comes to TCPA. And a lot of people don't realize when they're spending thousands of dollars on marketing every single day, that marketing is going to waste because there's algorithms that the FTC forced its cell phone carriers to put into place that you're probably not even aware of. That what it does is if you have an abnormal out of pattern, which could only be 50 calls in a day on your caller ID, they automatically mark you as spam or scam. And now your pickup rate just goes in the toilet. But in addition to that, they recently added something not too long ago that it goes even further than that. It'll ring on your end, but it never even rings their phone. And there's ways to solve that. So what we do at our CRM there, we have, something called Spam Guru that's built into our CRM that will actually auto rotate the numbers that we all know. And the second it's about to trick the algorithm where they're about to reach that 50 dials, it flips the number, puts a new number into place, and then whitelists all the numbers. And then you're getting a 30% higher contact rate. And I say that because if you got a sales rep out there, it's a freaking gangster that can go out and close deals and they can't get somebody on the phone, you're going to lose a great rep. So we use that. Zoom is another great technology we use because we have pretty much all of our companies virtual now. And we made our culture similar to an in-office culture. So what we did is we broke it out into departments and breakout rooms where like operation works together, sales works together. There's a leader in every room and they have to live with their camera on every single day. We don't do it to micromanage, but it's to build culture, to build camaraderie, to make sure they're not off on an island. And then also enforce accountability around the culture, because if everybody's operating in their own silo, like what is that, what does that do to the agency? You have no culture and everything crumbles. But when they're all working together, they have the same mission. You're making it fun. You're making it energetic. You're checking in on those KPIs. And there's that level of accountability there. Now you got them all running in the right direction. So we use Zoom for that. And then the last piece is obviously our software Jarvie that helps automate the role play process. Because, let's be realistic, like the best of us just don't have the time to do it sometimes. And then that allows us to put some of our training on autopilots, automates our hiring process. So we got a consistent, repeatable process. when it comes to bringing on talent in our agency. So those are the three things: Ricochet 360, Zoom, and Jarvie. We obviously have a deeper tech stack than that, but I'd say those are our top three things that we use.
Yeah, we utilize Zoom because we're 100% remote as well. So we do the same thing. We use Zoom. I just assumed, all right, this is what, if you're not utilizing a CRM in today's world, whoo, all right, that I wasn't even going to mention a CRM because I'm just assuming you're utilizing a CRM, all right? So a CRM is an absolute must in any sales organization. That's the first thing that you're going to be, one of the first things you're going to be buying as an agency owner. And yeah, man, and so also, like you mentioned Jarvie, I would mention Weever Sales Academy. That's a technology that a lot of agents across the country use because it's a systemized way to onboard their salespeople and make sure everybody's being trained the same way every single time from that consistent standpoint. I mean, we can get a brand new hire up and selling in less than 7 days.
No, I think it's a must. Every important aspect of life, you need a coach, right? You need a coach when it comes to your sales process, which you guys are experts at, and you're crushing it and building your business, building your agency. I even feel like every entrepreneur needs a mental coach. You need a good therapist to keep your mind straight. You need a physical fitness coach. Like, if it matters to you, measure it. And if it matters to you, find somebody that's doing it better than you that can help you get to the destination that they're at. And it's going to help you get there in like 10x faster. It's just like anything else. Like, I think every important area of life, you need a coach.
The easiest way to scale a business is through good people. All right. You can't do it by yourself, man. And you shouldn't try to do it by yourself either.
You can't do big things alone.
Nope.
No, I love it. Love it. All right. So one of the things, I know we hit on this a little bit, but I think, this is also an important question here. When it comes to sales culture, how do you cultivate the right culture that basically allows you to scale a business, right? So it allows you to scale a high performance team. Because I think what a lot of people face, including myself at one point, you hit that wall, right? You hit that wall and it stunts your growth and you're trying to figure out, hey, what is it? But usually when you get to that place and you get to that plateau, it's because you've outgrown your culture and you need to build a bigger vision in order to, support the bigger goal that you're chasing. So what do you have to say when it comes to, creating that culture that's meant to scale a high performance organization like this?
Yeah. I mean, I would encourage starting at the basics. So the basics are, in my opinion, expectations are everything. So if you have an expectation that your producer comes in and produces 10 items or policies a month, guess what? They're probably going to produce 10 items or policies a month. So I'm a huge proponent of expectations. Lead with expectations and make them big expectations. So if you're wanting producers, you have 3 producers on your team and you're wanting to hit 150 policies or items a month, then the expectation is 50 per person. And this is how you get there. So I'm a huge proponent of expectations and continuing to increase those expectations throughout time. So that would be number 1. Number 2, you got to have fun. Man, it can't be all business. So whether you're going out, like one thing we always did is we would go out once a week and just either play a game or have a drink or whatever. Like every month as a team, we would have a team outing. Every year I would take the team out to a huge fall planning event where we'd be gone for 3 or 4 days and we would have fun. We'd talk about what's going to go on the next year. Celebrating small wins. Like even me today, I have this on my desk. All right. And when I get a set, when I help an agent out, all right, I'm like, let's go, baby. Like we just did something. All right. I had a gong in my office to where everybody they made a sell. They're hitting that gong. So you got to make it fun. You have to make it inviting. You have to make it something that your team actually looks forward to coming in every single day. And in the remote space, you have to, it's a different, in my opinion, I had a hard time building a culture through virtual space, and you hit it on it earlier, Dave, so I'm not going to hit on it a lot, but having that virtual community to where you're in front of them every single day, you're seeing what they're doing, you're giving them like, hey, take a 10-minute break real fast, have basically a coffee break. Let's talk, what's going on, how you been. And so that's something that I also believe with the remote aspect of business, you're going to have to really work on developing yourself and how do I develop that culture in a remote environment. But start with the basics. Like if you're not meeting like one-on-ones, I'm a huge proponent of one-on-ones. I met with everybody in my office once a week, every week for 30 minutes to talk about what's going good, how's life. And then we would incorporate some business into that. Once a month, you're doing a business recap professionally. Just little things like that the more your team knows you're bought into them, the more they're going to be bought into you. So whether you're doing it or whether you hire someone to do it for you, it doesn't matter. It just has to be done, and you have to show your team some love.
No, absolutely. And then, one more thing on that too. I think, like you hear the old saying, like, don't sweat the small stuff. I think when it comes to culture, you have to obsess about the small stuff. And what do I mean by that? How you do one thing in life is how you do everything. So if you allow dirty desks, an ill-lit office, like all these little things, like I would come in and literally obsess over like making sure everything was symmetrical in the office, like not only clean, but it's got to be symmetrical. Everything's got to look perfect, because if it looks perfect, like, hey, how do they dress? Like, we have Fresh Fridays where people come in and put their best on every Fresh Friday. And then we'd have a competition who could dress the best, because I know we're in this virtual world and stuff now, but even if you do that virtually, have a Fresh Friday where everybody comes in, there's something to be said about the psychological of putting on a suit, looking in the mirror and looking great. When you look great, you feel great. And then that projects into how you perform for the day. And then, one last thing I'll hit on with it is, when I hit that plateau in my agency, I went to a conference. I was at 10X, Grant Cardone conference, and a guy got on stage, JJ Watson. He was running the number 1 through 7 Honda dealerships. So thousands of Honda dealerships in the world, and he had number 1 through 7, and he ranked number 1 through 7. That was profound to me. And he attributed it to non-compromising culture with non-negotiables. And he laid out his non-negotiables. I went back, did that into my agency and said, hey, everybody's got 60 days to get on board. You're going to be a part of the plan to come up with the non-negotiables and agree on them. We're going to have everybody sign off, and we're going to have to hold each other accountable. But I do want to set clear expectations. The first time, like, it's going to be a coaching. Maybe the second time, because it's new, it's going to be a coaching. The next time after that, we're going to put it on paper. The time after that, depending on what it was, might go to paper again, or you might not be with us anymore. But here's the why behind it. We're looking to grow to a different place. We're looking to go to a different place. I owe it to every one of you, and I owe it to our customers, and I owe it to the company. And when we don't have non-negotiables in place, like, it doesn't set up our company for excellence. And what were our non-negotiable? Positive mental attitude. Like, you got to exhibit PMA every day. No negativity allowed. We had signs up across our whole office that said no negativity. That didn't mean they couldn't have a bad day. We had an open door policy, but I never want to catch you perpetuating toxicity and negativity inside of my environment. It's counterintuitive to our team members, counterintuitive to our customers. Showing up to win every day, not just coming in at 9:05, 5 minutes late, getting your coffee, getting ready, and then getting to work. No, you're paid at 9 o'clock. You come in, you're ready to win at 9 o'clock. We don't make excuses. We make solutions. So be solution oriented. And they couldn't come to us with a problem unless they followed the rule of 3. They had to come up with 3 solutions, and one of the solutions that they thought was the best. So we'd have maybe a dozen different things like that. So what I recommend to everybody, hey, what are the things that are important to you that the world would be perfect for you or near perfect if all these fundamentals in place, and write it down. Those are your freaking commandments that hang on the wall that everybody's got to live by. It's your operation, not theirs. And I'll tell you, an end result of it, I had to get rid of 2 of our top performers, but guess what happened with a smaller team? The cream rose to the top, and we actually did more with less. In the environment, everybody said after that, it was one of the best environments that they've ever been in. And then at that point, our culture became a magnet for best talent. We didn't even really have to have a hiring process, because everybody kept knocking at our door. Birds of a feather flocked together. Our best customers were referring their best friends. They saw us on social media, and they're like, I want to work in a place like that because it doesn't feel like working. Like, all of our best employees started referring their friends. And then before we knew it, we just had this big bench of people that were just coming in because we became magnetic.
Yeah, man. Addition by subtraction, baby. Let's go. I love it, man. Because that was my experience too. Anytime because one of my biggest hurdles I had to overcome as an owner was firing that first person. And I hung on to it for way too long, fired them. All of a sudden production increased. I'm like, whoa. The next time I had to fire somebody, same thing, production. So it's wild. But when you get rid of the low hanging fruit and just let the racehorses run, it is crazy what can happen. And I'll reiterate, I wear a suit all the time. I was asked just the other day, Michael, why do you always wear a suit? Because it makes me feel good, man. It makes me feel good.
No, for sure.
I feel good. Like, I'm going to do good. And so that's why I always wear a suit. And just to reiterate your point, man, how you feel about yourself, the things you say to yourself are some of the most important things that's going to happen throughout a day.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of techniques you can do like that, right? Maybe we'll go deeper on another episode, but putting on that suit, there's something about that mentally that puts you in a good place. Like, and another hack when it comes to mental hacks too, because what can happen in the place of in sales. And I think this might be a whole nother topic for a whole nother episode, but stress and anxiety, right? You're trying to hit that goal. And too many people live with stress and anxiety. And I'll give a one, final tip and hack, how to manage that. Reframe what stress and anxiety is. Usually what stress and anxiety is you're living in the past or you're worrying about the future, right? You're not living in minutes and moments. But if you focus in the minutes and moments, that's where you're going to get the result. But then as a way to take the power away from stress and anxiety, it's just self-talk to reframe it. This isn't stress. This isn't anxiety. This is pressure. And guess what? Dave Williams freaking thrives under pressure. I smash it under pressure. The next best version of myself, the next best destination in my life always is on the other side of pressure, because pressure makes diamonds. And I'll go in my cold plunge and I'll put on David Bowie that says under pressure. And I'll say that to myself over and over again. And I can guarantee you, we're in a cold plunge. You cannot think about anything. You cannot be stressed. You cannot be anxious. It shocks the system. If you don't have a cold plunge, go in a cold shower, do that routine every single day. You'll start to get a different pep in your step, and stress and anxiety will start to lose its power. But it takes persistence. It takes showing up. It takes doing it every day.
Done a cold shower every day for the last 4 years. I've done cold plunges in the wintertime. It is a game changer. I would reiterate what Dave said. If you're not doing cold, you got to get into it, man. Just do it.
All right. So now we're getting to the end of our hour here. Any last final words of wisdom for Mr. Michael Weever? And then, how folks can maybe reach out and how they can work with you.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I mean, my last words would be kind of how I opened. Like, the number one investment you'll ever make is the investment in yourself. So if you're here right now, congratulations, you're getting better. Appreciate your time today, because it is by far the most important asset that we all have. Continue to 1% better. Read, podcast, work out, take care of yourself. You can find me. I typically like hanging out on LinkedIn. That's typically where I'm hanging out. So would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. The Insurance Buzz podcast. For insurance professionals, doesn't matter if you're an LSP or an agent. My book, Game Changer, Taking Your Agency to the Next Level. And then I actually just wrote a new book that's for any sales professional. I believe it's going to be fundamental. It's where I defy the lie that I believe we've all been told. And that's the lie of just do more, just make more calls, just work more hours, just spend more on marketing. When in all reality, the more of the wrong thing just leads to more of the wrong thing. I actually am a believer that doing less of the right things are actually going to equate to success in sales. And so I wrote a book called Quote 3, How to Make Multiple Six Figures in Any Sales Organization. And currently that's on pre-order. So you can check that out at quote3book.com, quote3book.com. But I believe it's going to be a fundamental book that every single person in your business needs to read, every new hire, because I walk through the sales cycle of how to identify customers, organize your day, what that conversation sounds like, how to get referrals. It literally just simplifies success in sales.
Boom. I love that. So there you have it, folks. We have Mr. Michael Weever, the real deal. I encourage you, if you're looking to take your agency to the next level, reach out to this man. He's got plenty of different ways to work with him. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the show today. I think it's been a pleasure. One of my favorite episodes. So, thank you for bringing it today.
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate the opportunity. And thank you again, man.
No, of course. And then there you have it, folks. Everybody in the Insurance Syndicate Live. It is July 25th, and we are just wrapping up episode 4 of Ask the Experts. Stay tuned next week, same time, same channel, where we're going to have another exciting expert to bring you value. So stay tuned.